The No Fate channel, checking in. On today's episode of Dad's Gadgets, I'm going to be going over my 3-month review of this CyberPower PC gaming desktop. I want to discuss what's actually inside this beast, how much I paid, how I was able to save some money, talk about how long it actually took to ship to me, and then talk about what I've been actually doing with it. Discuss pros and cons about going with CyberPowerPC and some of the issues that I experienced. We're going to stress test this bad boy to see how it actually performs against the specs that it has. And finally, talk about what I would do differently going forward. If this is your first time to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. On this Dad's Gadget series, I simply review the electronics, the gadgets, the gizmos that I actually use. I put through about a month, or in today's case, 3 months of use to help you decide if they are going to meet or exceed your expectations. And most importantly, if they're worth their hard-earned money. So CyberPowerPC, you're probably familiar with them. They are sold at Best Buy, they're sold at Walmart, they're sold on Amazon, and they have their own website where you can buy pre-built laptops, desktops. But if you want to run my route, you can actually take their pre-built stuff and you can go down line by line and pick out everything you possibly could dream of and basically have them do all of the building for you. So it's like building your own desktop, but they do all of the hard, heavy lifting, and they make sure that everything that you pick out is going to be 100% compatible. This is an ATX Eclipse mid-tower that I went with for the sleek, clean look. I knew I didn't want a massive case. I had a Stormtrooper case before, and it was just overboard, over the top, way more than I ever needed. I will say one of the nice things about going with CyberPowerPC are their options. They almost have too many options. Just for cases alone, they had over 100 to choose from in shapes and colors and sizes. It was almost too much, but not quite. For the CPU, I wanted to get something that could not only handle what I was working on currently, but that in 5 or even maybe 6 years, it still had some juice to it and could handle the beefier tasks that I'm sure I'm going to be taking on down the road. I ended up going with an AMD Ryzen 9 3900X. Now for the GPU, I went with the Radeon 5700 8GB. And again, that's more than I should need now, but I'm obviously trying to think 5 or even maybe 6 years out. For RAM, I got 32 gigabytes over 2 slots, which should be more than I need. But obviously, if the need arises down the road, I can easily pop in 2 more sticks. For power supply unit, I ended up going with the 800 PSU. And then obviously for the hard drive, I went with the SSD and a 3 terabyte HD hard drive in order to make sure I didn't have to really pop this top open anytime soon to add extra storage. Now, shipping is probably the main reason that so many people like to go into a Best Buy or a Walmart and simply walk out with the desktop. They've got it same day. CyberPowerPC promised me 4 weeks for delivery, and it actually took 7. And I know, especially in today's day and age where GPUs are going crazy, they're so hard to come by, you're probably going to be expecting 7 to 8 weeks for delivery, depending on the GPU that you go with. And that is something you do need to be aware of before you kind of hit that buy it now button. So how much did it cost? What was the damage? Delivered all told $14.28. I happen to think I got a good deal. I'm sure it wasn't a great deal, and I'm sure if I was able to build my own PC, I might have been able to get a better performance for that price, but I am certainly happy with what I paid. How did I save money? I rocked their sales. Now, they always have sales going on, but not all sales are created equal. I was able to get their Columbus Day sale 5% off the total price, free shipping, and I got double the RAM for half the price. So I got 32 gigabytes for the price of 16. Also within their selection, as you go through their drop down, there are instances, or at least there were for me, where I was able to get an improved product or improved component without actually having to pay that upcharge because of some of the individual component sales that they were running. So I happen to think CyberPowerPC, depending on the time and or sale that they're running and what you're specifically looking for, has some pretty good deals to be had, especially if you're willing to be a little bit flexible with some of the components that are going to go in here. I'm trying to kind of move towards the items that are on sale that they're having some type of promotional discounts for. So what have I been using this Cylon for, this toaster oven? The truth is, I wish I could tell you I was gaming with it. My last hurrah in gaming was Diablo 3, and I signed off, I don't even want to know how many years ago, because it was just taking up too much time. With the family, with work, and with the YouTube channel, I just don't have time to game, but I do hope in the future to try to pick up the next game that I can enjoy, and I'm sure this thing's going to keep up. Currently, I have been using it to edit my YouTube channel. Now, I know so many people will create videos all on their phone and upload it, but I really enjoy the editing process. I think it allows to create some really fun videos, and I enjoy creating in 4K. So hopefully these videos are good years from now when everything's going to be in 4K. To do that, I needed some beefy processing. My previous Red Rocket was an old architecture that got the job done, but I really had to jump through a lot of hoops, deal with a lot of crashes, and the rendering time was like 5 to 10 times the actual length of the video. Currently, in rendering 4K, I am on a 1-for-1 basis. So if it's a 10-minute video, it takes me only 10 minutes to render, so on and so forth. I have been using DaVinci Resolve 16 point whatever, just for reference for those of you who are doing video editing. I want to go through the issues that I had with CyberPowerPC to help you hopefully avoid most of them, and then for some of them just kind of know what you're getting into if you do go with CyberPowerPC for your next desktop. Now, I already mentioned the shipping. Nothing you can do about that. You just got to grit your teeth, bear it, and hopefully those 7 or 8 weeks come quicker than you expect. One of the big problems I had with them was their customer service. They've got a small window to actually talk to someone with customer service. It's very hard to get through. And I called them a number of times. Before I even purchased this, I called because I had questions on the actual product itself, on what I should pick versus not pick. And they were downright, I don't want to say rude. I don't want to be like a Karen and say rude, but they really talked down to me. And I thought, at least for someone who wanted to buy something from them, they would have a bit more understanding to try to walk me through at least a little bit. Wasn't actually asking for much of their time, just had a few specific questions, and they really kind of talked down to me. Another issue I had when I called back with them was regarding their keyboard. Now, their keyboard and their mouse typically come for free with their desktop. At least I think 99% of the time they're offered some free promotional thing. And the keyboard always stays lit. Even when the computer is off, it's always lit. And I was curious as to why that is. And frankly, when I called, they laughed at me for actually using the CyberPower keyboard. Now, I happen to think the keyboard and the mouse was an upgrade from my generic one that I was using before, so I was happy to get them. But they fairly laughed at me for even using it, and were not able to resolve the issue. After some digging, I believe it to be an issue with the actual quick-on boot system that is in here. Now, one of the bigger issues that I had, and it kind of caught me way off guard because it came after over a month of ownership, was that a notice on my Windows that Windows wasn't authorized, which caught me way by surprise, not only because it was after using this thing for a month, but because I went through a very reputable company, CyberPowerPC. So I called them up after getting through with them and talking to them. Apparently, they just didn't click the right buttons on the setup process, and they did have a fix, and the fix was fairly simple, but again, it was more of a nuisance to have to jump through those hoops and deal with it for a brand new desktop. One of the last issues that I had, and I don't even call this an issue, just something that you should be aware of, was the etching. Now, one of the things you can do when you do that drop down of picking every specific thing you want on your desktop is you can actually get wording etched in to the tempered glass on the side. And of course, my YouTube channel, if you ever stay to the end of one of my videos, my tagline is, don't save anything for the trip back. So I wanted to get no trip back written on here. And I did. I paid, I think, $10 or $15 extra. And for me, it was worth it because I plan to have this desktop for a while. I honestly expected it to be bigger and to be more visible. And frankly, it's not. Is it a deal breaker? Is it something I'm sad about? No. Knowing what I know now, I would probably still get it because when I'm using it, I can actually see it. But obviously, anyone watching one of my YouTube videos can't see it on camera. It just doesn't show up. It just doesn't pop. And frankly, my expectations were above where the reality kind of landed. I paid $14.28 for it. How fast is it? I will tell you, when I've got every window open possible, every program running, this thing is snappy like you wouldn't believe. unbelievably quick on the performance aspect in terms of my experience, in terms of my usage, in terms of the graphics are ridiculous. And again, part of that for me at least is because I'm coming from such an old architecture, old computer, that obviously anything new is going to feel faster, feel better. I will say when I am rendering in 4K, I look at the usage of the CPU, of the RAM, barely tops over 30% at most when I am really kind of putting this thing to the task, and super, super quiet. To date, I have not done a Nova bench test yet. I didn't want the results to skew my opinion and my review of how I've enjoyed this desktop thus far. I'm going to run this test right now. I'm going to put up the results to see if 1428 actually got me a really super fast computer, or if it just got me a pretty case.
Job's done.
I will also put it up against some of the competition in terms of like results to results, so we can compare apples to apples on how fast this desktop is, the CPU, GPU, hard drive, RAM, all that good stuff, compared to what else people are running on their desktop. Let me know, comment below what you have on your desktop, and if you've done a bench test or bench score, whatever you want to call it, drop that number in as well. So hopefully we can get an idea of what 1428 buys and if I overpaid for my CyberPower PC. Hindsight is 2020. So what would I personally do differently? The answer is not much. I would still go through CyberPower PC, and I would do what I did this time around. I would put as much money as I could afford into the CPU and the GPU. I happen to think those are the two things that probably cost the most to switch out if you do want to upgrade in the future. Stuff like RAM, although I'm glad I went with 32 gigabytes, I happen to think it's probably better to go lower on the RAM, because down the road you can always kind of stick in 2 extra sticks and you're on your way, and the cost of that is not as big as, say, replacing a GPU for a better GPU. My only word of advice or small caution when you go through building out your own desktop at CyberPowerPC is beware of a death by 1,000 cuts. Beware of getting nickeled and dimed, because you go through and they've got selections for everything, and they've got upcharges, and they don't seem like big upcharges, $5 here, $10 here. And by the time you get to the end, if you're not careful, you got an extra like $400 or even $500 worth of upcharges. And some of them make sense depending on what you're really about, what you're really interested in. For me, as an example, the etching on the side made sense for me. Even though it wasn't as big as I'd hoped, it still made sense financially, because over the long term, I'm going to be glad I got it. But there's a lot of other small things in there that really don't make sense and really can add up quite quickly. If you came this far in the video, please let me know, comment below what desktop specs you're running, what you're using it for, and if you have any questions on CyberPower PC at all, drop them in the comments below and I'll try to get them answered. If you came this far in the video, please hit that subscribe button, give this video a like. As usual, thank you for watching, and don't save anything for the trip back. This channel is dedicated to my life as a father of 2 wonderful children, and it centers around health, fitness, and all of the tricks and tribulations that I go through to try to be a great parent to my children and still accomplish my own personal goals.